Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus. My woman in focus today is an amazing young woman. I've known her since she was a little girl. I've seen her grow, and she is currently the marketing and events manager at UBC. Her name is Sukhi Ghuman. You must have heard her name associated with VIBC, Be Your Own Best Friend, and many other projects. Sukhi is our woman in focus today. Welcome to the program. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Now, I was reading a little bit about you and found out that, your family has been here for many years. Mm-hmm. Before I go there, tell me, what do you do at UBC? Events and marketing.
Yes, I've been with UBC now for about 2.5 years, and I'm their marketing and events coordinator. So I coordinate a lot of their conferences and workshops that they put on to kind of teach professionals and faculty members to incorporate technology into their teaching.
Right. So that's not boring, is it?
It's not boring. It keeps me on my toes. Yeah. But the great thing about what I love about UBC is that it gives me the opportunity to work on some other projects that I also love. So it doesn't take up my entire life, which is amazing. And it allows me to work on projects like the VIBC Society as well as the Be Your Own Best Friend Network.
Now, Be Your Own Best Friend, when I first saw that, I thought, what an amazing, idea. When you look at friends, there are very few people who can say that they've got a best friend for life, right? Either you move around or you lose touch with people, because we're all immigrants over here, right? So you have to cultivate friendship. It is very important.
It is important, and I've been very lucky that I have had one best friend since I was in grade 6.
Oh, wow.
And now we've been friends for over 20 years, and now she has a beautiful daughter, and we've been there for each other for every important time in our life.
Isn't that lovely?
It is, and you can't say that about a lot of people in your life.
No.
And the great thing about your friends is you get to choose them.
That's
right. You're not born into them. You get to choose who you want to spend your time with and who you want to celebrate your successes with. And that's sort of what the Be Your Own Best Friend concept came up with. It was more about celebrating sisterhood, but also knowing that you need to be your own best friend before you can be someone else's best friend.
Yeah, there are things about ourselves that we like and dislike. So we've got to accept that, right?
Yes, definitely.
It is most important.
Yeah, everybody has faults. And nobody's perfect.
Well, there are some people who think they're perfect. Let's talk about your family. It's an interesting, read that your family's history goes back over 100 years. So your great-grandfather came here?
Yes, my great-grandfather, Datt came in 1906. And back then, the women weren't able to come to Canada. So the men came.
So 1906, eh?
Yes, a very long time. And then in 1926, my grandfather came, and his name was Ratan Singh Ghuman. And then he also worked in the mills with his father. And then, even then, he married my grandma in India, but she also couldn't immigrate to Canada until 1949.
Wow.
So my grandpa had his first 2 kids in India, but the last 3 kids, including my father, were born here in Canada. And when my grandma came in 1949, she decided to move the family to Surrey. So that's when they moved to Surrey.
1949?
1949.
What did Surrey look like at that time?
It was really different. They decided to buy a house in the Wally area, what's known as Wally now. And I remember hearing stories from my grandma as well as my father that back then people were very welcoming. And they considered my grandma's family and my dad's family foreigners. So they used to tell me stories about how when they moved into the neighborhood, the Caucasian neighbors, they would bring them flowers as to welcome them to the neighborhood.
Isn't that beautiful?
So it's an amazing story, and you think back, from back then, there were very few Indians living here, and the fact that they were welcoming them to their community with open arms, it made them feel very welcome.
That's a totally different, take on an immigrant story. You hear, I remember talking to Mrs. Uppal, and her story was something like that as well. That, she worked with Caucasians and she didn't find any discrimination. Her 2 children, Justice Wallace Uppal and his brother, they grew up as, young Canadian boys. Nobody asked them, where do you come from? Where does that thing come in right now? You know, no matter you've been born, you're what, fourth generation?
Mm-hmm.
So people still ask you, where do you come from?
I do, yeah. I get that question a lot, and when I answer and I say I'm from Canada,
Yeah.
they're like, no, where are you really from? And I'm like, no, I'm really from there. Then they're like, well, where's your dad from? I'm like, he's from here too. And then they're like, okay, where are your ancestors from? And then I'll say, you know, they are from India, and my mom is from India as well. And but it's just so great to see, you know, how far we have come.
Yeah.
And it's so good to know that, I know my dad did have some struggles growing up.
Yeah.
You know, he went to high school in Surrey as well, and I know when he was younger, in elementary school, he did have a turban, and so did his brother. And his older brother told him, no, you're gonna have to cut your hair, or else they're gonna really bother you here at school. So he did end up cutting his hair. But then, you know, now, many years later, my dad is proud to wear a turban. He's a baptized Sikh. And, you know, it just shows that it comes back full circle.
It does.
You know, now they don't have that discrimination that they have to worry about. And, you know, they went through that time, and it was a little bit difficult for them, but they got through it. And I think in the end, they're okay with it. They don't hold any resentment for having to cut their hair.
Living in the moment is most important. You know, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So if you have to do something when you are going through a period and it looks like that's the only choice you have to do it.
Yes.
You know, but feeling bad about it later on doesn't make any sense, does it?
No.
So you were born in Surrey then?
Yes, I was. My dad was born in New Westminster,
okay.
and then I was actually born at the Surrey Memorial Hospital, which is still there. Yeah.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your early childhood. But we'll take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back. Sukhi Ghuman is our woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Growing up in Surrey, today Surrey, at that time when you said there weren't that many Indians living there, right? But today, over 30% of Surrey's population is South Asian.
It is.
You know, and mom and dad still live there?
Yes, my mom and dad still live there. My dad's brothers all live there as well. My buaji, my dad's sister, she moved to California.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of our family, you know, they were very happy with living in Surrey. We did move from the Wally area probably when I was in grade 4.
Right.
But, you know, that's where my parents or my grandparents had initially bought their home and settled, and we kind of lived in that area for quite some time.
You did work with the city of Surrey as well in the same marketing. So let's go back when you were studying. What were your interests? Did mom and dad want you to be doctor, lawyer, engineer, one of those?
I think because my dad was born here, he didn't have any of those preconceptions on what he wanted his kids to be when they grew up. I think knowing that he also went through the same high school system, he realized that not every kid is an academic, or not every child can become a doctor. And I know my dad wasn't a student that got straight A's either. So, you know, he never put on...
Did he ever tell you that?
He never, I think it was implied. Like, he was very proud of both my brother and I when we got on the honor rolls. But he wanted to make sure that my brother and I both understood that there is no expectation. The only expectation is that you try your best. And as long as you're trying your best, then that's all that matters. So with myself, I know obviously our parents would love us to become doctors, lawyers, or engineers, but mostly it's because they want their kids to have an easier life than they did.
That's right.
But what was great about my dad is that he said, you know, whatever makes you happy. So going into university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did a Bachelor's of Arts degree.
Right.
And then I actually decided to go into teaching because I really loved working with children. And they supported that 100%. And I went into the UBC teaching program, and I did that for a year.
So you didn't do PDP, is that what it is called?
It's PDP if you go to SFU, but UBC similar program.
Okay.
And I did that 1-year program, and then I was a substitute teacher actually in the Surrey School District.
Okay.
So I was subbing in a lot of the high schools as well as the elementary schools for about a year and a half. And it was an amazing experience for me, and I really cherish those moments. But it also made me realize that this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. And the great thing is, when you have supportive parents like that, it doesn't matter. You know, they're like, if this isn't what's for you, then what is for you? And why not take that time to figure out what makes you happy and what you want to do with your life? And that's sort of what's given me the opportunity to do so many other things as well.
You went into television as well, and for the longest you did a community program, and you were hosting that. And I remember, you know, watching that and saying, you know, this is amazing, this is fantastic. Now, that was all a volunteer initiative on your part, wasn't it?
Yes. When I was actually in the teaching program at UBC, I decided to volunteer for this community television program, and I did that for almost 7 years.
Yes.
And, you know, I would film on the weekends, and it was a great opportunity for me to learn how to be on camera, how to write scripts, how to be a reporter and a television host, and that really opened the door for me to connect with many other people in the media industry, and it also gave me the opportunity later on down the road to work for Shaw TV as their host of their multicultural channel.
Right. Now that has changed quite a bit as well. I mean, from the time when it was first initiated in 1979 to today, my God, you know, I mean, we remember there were only 7 programs at that time, and there were only 7 languages that were being catered. And today, I think Shaw Multicultural Channel does over 90 languages. It
does, and it's a great, because it just shows that our community here is so multicultural, and we're trying to cater to as much as our community here in Metro Vancouver.
I think deep down you're a businesswoman. What do you think?
I mean, I would like to think, you know, for me it's not always about money. I think that's one thing that my dad really taught us, that, you know, it's all about making sure you're happy, spending time and quality time with your family, and having that respect for those in your life. He always said to me sometimes, more money, more problems. So, you know, it was always about, you know, live within your means. So for me, it's always about putting myself and being a part of organizations or community initiatives that I really believe in, and be a part of, you know, aspects that I feel are making a difference in my community. Because I do strongly believe that, you know, this is our community that we live in, and if we want to see that change, you know, we need to be a part of it, and we need to initiate it. So that's sort of why, you know, even being a part of the Be Your Own Best Friend Network and creating this initiative with my partner, as well as the VIBC Society, these are great causes that I believe in. And now I'm also be hosting the World of Smiles Telethon for BC Children's Hospital, and it'll be my 12th consecutive year doing that. And it's because I really believe in the cause, and so I'm willing to put in that time and effort to be a part of it.
Now, you got married recently. When I say recently, in the last little while.
Yeah, it's been 3.5 years. The time flies by when you're having fun.
That's true. So that is an interesting story as well. How did you meet Gurj?
Gurj, well, my husband, for some people who don't know, he is a chef.
Yes.
And when I was working as a reporter,
he worked his way through your stomach.
He did. He worked it. He definitely made an impact. And when I was working for Shaw TV as a reporter, Gurj was on a television show called the Superstar Chef Challenge.
Right.
And it was sort of like how they have the Top Chef Canada on the Food Network. So this was a show on the Food Network, and he actually ended up winning as a top chef across Canada on this show. So for me, it was just so great to see, you know, a South Asian man in our community winning this amazing accomplishment all across, you know, chefs in Canada. So I wanted to interview him. So, you know, I brought my camera crew, and we went to his house, and he taught me how to make pakode.
No kidding.
And, you know, and it kind of just went from there. It was just, honestly, we say it was love at first bite. And it's been awesome since then.
So what are the dishes that you like the most that he makes? I mean, he is a chef, so what is his specialty in that?
He specializes in French cuisine.
French cuisine, okay.
But the amazing thing about Gurj is that he loves cooking food of all kinds.
Oh, okay.
So he does Indian cooking, he does French, he does Italian. But the one thing that I really love about the fact is that when he comes home from work, he's not sick and tired of, you know, cooking. You know, he actually does all of the cooking in our house. He makes breakfast, he packs my lunch, he makes dinner, and my job is all the cleaning and the laundry. But it's a pretty good trade, you know.
think
much.
so. I think that's the best one. I think you've got the best of both the worlds.
I definitely do, especially since I've never been, one to really like to spend too much time in the kitchen.
In the kitchen.
Yeah, I'll do all the cleaning, I'll wash all the dishes,
Yes.
but when it comes to figuring out what to make,
Yes.
that's just not my
But
forte.
leave it to the experts.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about Gurj, but right after the short commercial break. Sukhi Ghuman is our woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Sukhi Ghuman is our woman in focus. So you saw Gurj. He won this competition. He made these fantastic pakoras for you, and you took a bite and fell in love with him.
That's exactly how it happened.
You took him to mom and dad. How long before did you take him and introduce him to mom and dad?
See, that's where it gets to be a little bit of an interesting story.
Yeah.
Gurj and I, we probably dated for over a year,
Okay.
and then he proposed. And actually, I didn't introduce him to my parents until after he proposed.
So, until after you said yes to him?
Until after I
No
said yes.
kidding.
So I know that's not the typical way things are done.
Right.
But I know for me, I wanted to be really sure before I
Yes.
introduced someone to my parents. And I know for my parents, if I was ever going to introduce them to a man, they wanted to be, just introduce us to the guy you're going to marry.
That's
not some
right.
guy you're dating,
Yeah.
not some guy who's your boyfriend or you're thinking about. But so that's why after he proposed, then I was like, okay, now it's time to introduce you to your parents. And it was probably one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life.
No kidding.
Because pretty much it's like, hi, mom and dad, I want to introduce you to somebody that I'd like to get married to. So it was a bit of a shock. But I think, when your parents raise you in a way with instilling you with all these values that are very important to them, then
Yes.
they have faith in your decision.
And the funny thing is that parents never sit you down and say, these are our values. You sort of pick them on, don't you?
You do. And when they're with you from the day one,
Yeah.
they raise you that way, and they're always instilling these and ingraining them in
Yeah.
you. It's all about respect.
Yes,
That's
that's
what
what
it really
it
comes
is.
down to.
Yeah. So take me there. So you took him with you, or you just
No, I told my parents on my own first,
Okay.
by myself. And
to your mom or dad or both of them?
I actually sat them down together. I think it would have been harder if I did one. So I told them both at the same time. I was probably sweating, drenched in sweat, because I didn't know how they would react. And they were excited, but they
Yeah.
also wanted to know, well, who is he? What
See.
does he do? And I just told my mom and dad that, don't worry, you're going to meet him tomorrow.
Okay.
So they met him the next day, and they hit it off great. And then the day after that, his parents came over and they did what they call like our taka or a
Taka,
rock.
that's right.
And then it was kind of official. So it was done really quick. Once we got engaged,
That was
my
it.
parents found out, they met him, and then his parents met my parents, and that's when the wedding planning started. So
Now you were featured in Rich Bride.
Rich Bride, Poor Bride.
Now, how did that come about?
Well, working in the television industry, you have a lot of perks. A lot of other producers of
That's
different
right.
television shows. And Gurj also has quite a few friends who work in television. And one of our friends was actually the producer of the show, and they're based out of Toronto.
Right.
And they were actually looking to feature one couple from the West Coast, because they've never featured any couples
Right.
from Vancouver. And they approached us, and we did an audition, and it kind of went from there. They loved the chemistry both Gurj and I had.
Right.
And they wanted to be a part of our big Indian wedding, and they were there. It was very fun to have them around.
But you and your brother, you're the only you're two siblings, right?
Yes.
And so it's interesting that for a Punjabi family to have just two kids. So that sort of threw me off when you said my brother and I only. How was that growing up with your brother? Is he older to you, younger to you?
He's younger by 3
Okay,
years.
okay.
And I think what was so great is that my father really always told my brother and I, we are equal.
Okay.
He's like, maybe you might see your cousins where they treat their sons better than their daughters, but my dad made it sure that my brother knew and that I knew that we're always going to get the same thing.
Right.
So what's even funny is that when we were quite young and the Cabbage Patch Dolls came out, I got a Cabbage Patch doll and my brother got a Cabbage Patch doll, but his was obviously the boy doll. but they were always fair. You know, if he got a new bike, I got a new bike.
Right.
If I needed new clothes, he got new clothes.
Right.
If I got to go on a vacation, he was there too. Everything was really fair,
Right.
and they never wanted us to feel that they would favorite one child over another. And
Right.
even when it came to academics, we didn't always get the same grades in school,
Right.
but that didn't matter. As long as you were trying hard,
Right.
then you
And
were,
they saw-
you were rewarded.
Yeah, and they saw that you were working hard with it.
We were.
You know,
We
all-
both had chores
Yeah.
to do at home. We both had to wash dishes, clean up after dinner, take out the garbage,
Right.
vacuum, Windex the windows. We had to do all of that, and we weren't also like given cars when we turned 16. We drove whatever cars we had at home, and that also meant that I had to drive my brother and pick him up, take him to his practices or school projects as well.
Right.
So there was a responsibility attached to it.
How close are you to him?
I'm very close to him. Yeah, we're very. I think when there's just two of you, you have that bond, and obviously now the older you get, the stronger
Yes.
that bond gets.
Right.
I think there were times when we were younger where we wanted to, we did fight a lot, and we still bug each other a lot. But that's that one person who was always there for you.
Right, right. As a married person, and looking at your future, would you go for a small family? Would you go for a large family?
I think nowadays, when you even think about money, it's so expensive to have a large family.
Right.
I know definitely.
The government gives you $1,200 a year.
They do, yeah, they do. But daycare is almost $1,700 a month, so it all balances out. But I think having a sibling, I would definitely, when I have children, I would like to have my children to have a sibling as well. I think I've had some friends who are single children, and there's certain personality traits that they have. So I know that having a sibling makes a big difference. So I would definitely go for that.
Kids know how to deal with
that and learn how to share.
Yeah.
And you have that kind of little buddy all the time with you. So it makes a big difference.
You're currently working with UBC. Where do you see yourself going after this?
Right now, I really enjoy working at UBC. If anything, I like to see myself going into a higher management position there. And I also, with my photography business, I do that on the side, and I also see that growing over time. Lately, what's just been so amazing is a lot of people have been coming to me to do marketing consulting, or also teaching small businesses how to use social media to promote their businesses.
Right.
And it wasn't something I started to plan out to do. I don't even have a website for it, but I've been getting a lot of requests through word of mouth, so I've been doing that on the side. So I definitely see maybe focusing more on my marketing consulting and kind of creating that as a side business as well.
I'd like to ask you more questions about the aspect of volunteering. As far as you're concerned, you've been doing it for so many years, and the rewards that you get from them, satisfaction and so on and so forth. But this program won't allow us to do that, so we'll have to spill it over in another program.
For sure, definitely.
Well, thank you for being a woman in focus today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sukhi Ghuman has been our woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus. Sukhi Ghuman is our Woman in Focus today. We were talking to her about her life, her family's background, history in Canada over 100 years. But Sukhi herself has done so many things in her little life, tons of things and many more to do. Sukhi, thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk to you again. When we were talking about your life here and, your achievements and your volunteer work has always impressed me. Now, I know that as a student, you started doing television, volunteering for that, and then VIBC came into the picture. Let's talk about VIBC. How did that come about?
Well, because I was a part of the UBC Bhangra Club when I used to go to school there, I had some sort of experience hosting cultural shows and volunteering and putting those together. So when Mo Dhaliwal approached me and he had said, you know, we need to do an amazing like Bhangra competition here in Vancouver because all of the teams from Vancouver were going all over the world and winning first place, but they didn't have a platform here. And when he approached me to do this, I was like, you know what? Why not? Because why not showcase the amazing talent that we have in our own community?
Right.
So we've been, you know, volunteering our time now with the VIBC Society for almost 9 years.
Wow.
And we're going into our 9th festival. And, you know, when you're doing something you love, it doesn't feel like work or
like a chore.
Or a chore. Yeah. And we've seen our organization grow from about 10 people to now almost a committee of 30 people.
Wow.
In addition to over 150 volunteers on the day of the festival.
Wow.
So it's amazing to see, and even when we get the reaction from the audiences, when you hear from even non-Indian people how amazing of a time they had, it makes you feel really good about yourself as to why you're doing this, because we're just showcasing Bhangra as a Punjabi art form, but we're allowing people of all cultures to experience it and love it as much as we do.
Now, when you said it started as a competition because people from all over the world would come and participate in it. I think the first 3 years you guys did a competition. And then it moved from a competition to a showcase.
Yes, with the competition, you know, people did have to pay like a ticket to go to watch it at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre. And sometimes, you know, spending $100 or $200 on tickets for a family, it is difficult. Also, because we wanted to showcase...
Well, Times of India didn't think it was difficult to spend $1,500 for a ticket, you know.
Yes, each to their own. And with us, we want, because our mandate is to promote it to all cultures, we wanted to open it up. And what better way to then create all these stages accessible, but also free to the public.
So each and every segment of the festival is free.
Not all of them, but we do have over 20 hours of programming that is free.
Okay.
So there are a few events, because of the venue that it's being hosted in, we need to kind of have a ticket price, but even then the most expensive ticket is $25.
Right.
And that's just to help cover the venue cost as well, and the artist fees.
Now, is VIBC a non-profit organization?
Yes.
It is?
Yeah, it's a not-for-profit organization.
Not non-for-profit. So all the expense has got to be covered. So how do you cover all the expense?
Expenses are covered through corporate sponsors. I mean, this year we've been very lucky. We have HSBC as our presenting sponsor, and they take a big brunt of that.
Right.
And it's because of them we're able to bring in all these amazing artists from the UK, put them in hotels, pay for the staging. But it's also a lot of community donors.
Right.
You know, we have a community development committee who goes to people's homes and do presentations. And this year we actually hired a community development officer. So her job is to help raise funds for VIBC.
Right.
And a lot of that we've been able to do because of the government funding that we've received through a variety of different grants.
Now, when you put up the event, it almost takes a whole year to organize it, isn't it?
It does.
How many hours do you have to put to that?
You know, everybody spends a different amount of time. I think last time I heard there was over 100,000 hours of volunteer hours put together. I know myself, we pretty much start planning the next year, and already from what I've been told, they've already booked some artists for our next year's event, because next year will be our 10-year anniversary.
That's right.
So, and in order to plan for, especially venues and dates, you need to plan ahead. And if you're applying for different grants, you need to have those dates set up.
Now, it started as a Vancouver event, and looking at the community, you know, majority of it living in Surrey, you had to find venues in Surrey as well.
Yes, last year we expanded to the city of Surrey, and we've been hosting, and we will be hosting events at the Surrey Art Gallery.
Okay.
So we're hosting a repercussion event there, and you know, we're trying to build. You know, because we're still new to the city of Surrey. I think maybe even next year we'll have more events there. But you know, because we've been in Vancouver now going into our 9th year, it's a little bit easier for us to get venues, because people know who we are. But we're still trying to grow and build our brand awareness in Surrey.
So what's going to be happening this year?
This year, from May 30th to June 8th, we have a variety of different events. We are hosting...
So it's become a week-long
Yeah, almost
event.
2 weekends incorporated in there. We still have our repercussion events, which is the most popular one, and we're hosting that in Surrey and Vancouver.
Right.
And at that particular event, you get to see the drums of the world come together and beat as one. We also have our downtown Bhangra event for 2 days. They'll be taking place on June 7th and 8th in downtown Vancouver at the Art Gallery.
Okay.
So that's the event that a lot of people we strongly encourage to come out because it is free. It's outdoors.
Right.
It's a huge Bhangra block party in the heart of downtown Vancouver, where you get to see singers and dancers, and there's a lot of Bhangra teams who are also flying in from North Carolina, from Pittsburgh, from California, from New York.
Wow.
And it's so amazing that we're not having a Bhangra competition anymore, but still some of the top teams who do compete are coming to perform at our festival, and they want to come because they love that fact that now they don't have to worry about competing.
Right.
All they're doing is performing, which they love,
and having fun.
And having an amazing time.
Yeah. So this is happening from the 30th to the 8th of June.
Yeah.
Apart from this, you, I understand, are also a great photographer, and I want to show a few photographs of yours, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But let's take a short break and come back. Sukhi Ghuman is our woman in focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Our Woman in Focus today is Sukhi Ghuman. VIBC has been a part of Vancouver younger generation for a long time. You, while you were doing all that, got interested in photography. Was that a passion that started just now, or have you been a photographer for a long time?
That's sort of a passion that I think I had because of my father.
Okay.
My dad has always had a love for photography since we were young, and he always had like the best camera. So
Right.
every year, every couple of years, he would buy a brand new camera, and it was the top of that year. And and that's probably why my brother and I have so many pictures of ourselves growing up. And I think because he always had that love for photography, for me to pick it up was a little bit easier.
Right.
I always had access to the great equipment, and I kind of just took it from there, because cameras are quite expensive, especially
Yes.
the good ones. And when I first started, I always loved taking pictures, and maybe because my dad did too. And it was about 3-4 years ago where I wanted to learn more about it. And my dad taught me as much as he knew, but after that, he's like, you need to, if you want to take this up a next level, you need to learn more, and I can't teach you any more than I
Right.
know. So I started taking some photography classes, and I learned how to use my camera manually. And then, the equipment is expensive, and I was dating Gurj by then, and
Right.
he was like, if I'm going to support you, you better be making some money to help pay for this equipment, because, my camera cost me $3,000.
Right.
So, and any lens you buy, it can get quite costly.
Of course it does.
So, I've been doing now photography for about 2 years as a part-time business. It's more of a hobby that I really, really love. So it's not something I'm doing to make money,
Right.
but it's something I'm doing because I just love every aspect of it.
So when you say as a business, so do you go to certain, do you do certain photography, like is it people photography, is it nature photography, what is it?
I do take pictures for like lifestyle sessions for
Okay.
people who are getting engaged. I also provide headshots for people who want pictures for their websites.
Or modeling or something?
Yeah, for things like that. I did do a few weddings a
Yes.
couple of years ago, and I also...
How was that?
It's definitely an experience.
Yes.
You have to be ready for those 12-hour days.
Oh my
And
God.
for me, like, I did it as a second shooter. I went with another photographer just to shoot with him as well. And then I did some on my own. And I love it when there's not a lot of pressure, but I think when I was at the bride's house at 7 o'clock in the morning and her doli didn't leave till like 7:30 the next day or that night because her reception wasn't the next day, I was exhausted. And I was like, and I still had to go to work on Monday because it's something I do on the side. So I was like, you know what, maybe the weddings, unless it's a couple that I really, really like, then I'd be willing to do it.
Or it's unique.
Yeah, or unique.
Yeah.
I do find like the Gora weddings are a lot less stressful, so I tend to take more of those clients. But the Indian weddings are huge because again, you have to dedicate 5-6 days of your week just to their wedding.
And you know, there's so many relatives that are there, and you cannot miss anybody.
You can't. And I think when I get the crazy auntie who's like, take my picture, and you know, after 12 hours of shooting, I'm like, seriously, all I want to do is go home now. But you have to do it because again, it's customer service.
That's right. That's right. So, you know, photography and videos and everything, I always feel that you have to have an eye for that. Take a picture, you can take a picture anywhere, but to compose a picture is amazing. I've seen some of your photographs. So do you spend time composing it?
I do. For me, it's, I say like, I want to remember my life through images. So I've had the opportunity to travel like all through South America and Europe and even Cuba. And it's funny because even though I'll be traveling with other people who also have cameras, I'll snap a shot that they just didn't see. And everybody sees things differently. So it's all about capturing, you know, that image that you want to remember. And I just try to take that time to do that.
Give me a collage of some of the most beautiful things that you've seen in your travels.
Well, I've had the opportunity to travel. I spent almost a month in Spain 2 years ago, and I just loved their culture. It was just so amazing. And when you have someone who's from there who can show you what their community is really like, it makes it really special. Also, I spent one of my coworkers has a house in the south of Italy, so I got to spend about 4 days with her in a small town of just 3,000 people. And honestly, it was like a small pind in India, but it was a lot cleaner. And it was just so amazing because everybody there knew that we were not Italian, but they embraced us like we were part of their family. And just feeling that love from a small community was just amazing. Earlier in the year, I also spent 3 weeks traveling all through South America. So I went to Peru and I spent some time at Machu Picchu. I went to Rio de Janeiro. I also went to Buenos Aires in Argentina, and as well as Ecuador. And what's so great is that every place is so unique and so different. And even at Machu Picchu, they say it's one of the most serene places on earth, and you get to really get in touch with your spirituality there. And I had an amazing time where me and my girlfriend went and we started doing yoga at Machu Picchu, and we loved it. And I got some amazing pictures of doing that too.
Now, nature pictures are also amazing, and in that, as you said, that you know, you would take a picture and people would miss that. I went with my sister to Jamaica, and some of the pictures that she's taken, I would never take those pictures. And she is in a boat and showing her feet. And the picture is her feet in the water. I wouldn't do that. But you know, when you look at that picture, it looks amazing. You know, so those are some of the things that you have to see. Your eye has got to be trained for that. Now you started a new group of young women called Be Your Best Friend. I want to talk about that. Shall we talk about that after the short commercial break?
For sure.
I can ask Sukhi anything and Sukhi will talk to me. Let's take a short commercial break and be back and talk to her about who is her best friend. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Our Woman in Focus today is Sukhi Ghuman. What a beautiful day we've had. Now, Vancouver and the Lower Mainland is one of the most beautiful places in the world. You've been to so many places. You just mentioned Europe and South America. Can you compare any of those places with Vancouver?
You know, when you come home, you realize how amazing our city is. I think people don't realize it unless you actually leave. And when you come back, like, we're so lucky. We have the water, we have the mountains, we have everything here. We have the forests, and you don't get that a lot all over the world.
Now you started a new project with your friends called Be Your Own Best Friend, and as when to cut it short, what is it called?
It's the BYOBF network.
BYOBF. I always miss out couple of couple of letters in there.
It is long.
Yes. So you said you have to be your own best friend. So when you started this, how many women did you contact, and how many women joined you?
Well, the initiative was put forward by my colleague Manpreet Dillon.
Okay.
And she approached me and said, you know, we really need to create something that supports South Asian women. And both her and myself, we sit on a variety of different boards, and we're part of a variety of different organizations that we volunteer for. And because of that, we're very fortunate that we get to meet such amazing women in our community. But a lot of our friends were saying to us, well, how come you guys know so many people and we never get to meet people besides the ones we went to school with or that we work with? And so we decided that why not tap into our network and provide all these women with an opportunity to meet other women. It's very difficult to meet like-minded women outside of your current network of friends, and women who are open to celebrating the successes and to learn from women and their experiences.
And learn to network.
And networking is so amazing. I mean, men have been networking for hundreds of years, and that's what's really helped them to elevate their careers.
Right.
So why not give women this opportunity? So that's sort of why we created the Be Your Own Best Friend Network. It provides women with a safe environment to meet new people, to connect with them, and to also celebrate the successes of the women in our community and the amazing work that they're doing.
So how many women have joined the organization?
We have over, from my understanding, about 300 women, and we host events every 2 months, and we get almost anywhere from 40 to 50 women attending the networking events.
Right.
And we try to host events in different cities, and some of our events are purely just networking, and some of them are workshops, because we've been finding that a lot of our members wanted to have that opportunity to learn something new, but also connect with women. So as Manpreet and I plan for future events, we are working on events that have to deal with self-defense, so teaching women how to be able to defend themselves. We have women who to come in and talk about empowerment and how to get in touch with your inner self. And also some are just fun, like some are events like let's go shopping and see what's the new fall fashion. So we'll be hosting an event at Topshop. But an upcoming event that we're doing in June will be about women who have launched their own businesses. So we'll be doing a panel discussion, talking to women within the business to talk about what were some of the hardships that they face opening their businesses. And we'll also have accountants and lawyers there to let you know what type of contracts should you have if you have a partner. And as an accountant, you know, how can you save money if you're launching your own business? So we're just providing women with the skills that they might need if this is an avenue they'd like to explore.
Being a South Asian woman and meeting other South Asian women, what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses?
You know, our strengths are that there's a lot of us, you know, and a lot of us are very passionate about the work we do. Some of our weaknesses might be that we tend to put our family or our partners first and their needs first. You know, there's a lot of women out there who will do everything for their children, for their husbands, for their parents, for their in-laws, for their brothers and their sisters, but they won't take that time for themselves. They won't take that time for them to go to the gym and take care of their own health, or to, you know, take some time and maybe get their hair dyed or go to the spa or treat themselves. They'll do everything in their power for everybody else but themselves. But we're trying to teach you that you need to do something for yourself and feel good about yourself before you can make everyone else around you feel good.
So if you feel good, obviously you can make other people feel good as well.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that the South Asian women have more hurdles to cross and to overcome than other community women?
I think it depends on your family and how you're brought up. You know, I've been very fortunate that because my father raised me, that you are always going to be equal to your male counterparts.
Right.
So don't ever feel, you know, that you need to do more than anyone else.
Right.
And unfortunately for my husband, you know, he's had to deal with that as well. So, you know, we're very equal in our relationship. But for some women, you know, they were raised as if they were second to their
Right.
brothers, or, you know, that the women always took a step back. And, you know, sometimes I go to dinner at, you know, some of my other relatives' houses, and, you know, the men get to eat first and then the women eat after, or the men eat and they leave their plates on the table and the women have to come clean it up.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw that, I asked my dad, I'm like, Dad, why didn't Uncle pick up his plate and put it in the sink?
Yeah.
That's how we do it in our family.
Right.
And he just said, you know, that's just, you know, they're different, and, you know, we're not here to embarrass them. They're our
Right.
guests. So let's, you know, but we had a discussion after they left, and
Yeah.
he, you know, he explained to me that every family is different. We want to treat you as an equal, and that's how we're
Right.
raising you, but not everybody does that.
Do you think that's changing a lot?
I think it's hard to say. You know, I think when our generation, where a lot of us are raising our kids as equals. But I do see even some women my age who don't do that with their own children. So, you know, it's tough because I don't know. You know, I'm almost thinking that sometimes our younger generation, that they should have been, you know, a step ahead of where we were.
Right.
But sometimes I see that what they're doing is almost way more backwards
Yeah.
than before, and it's unfortunate when you see that, especially the young kids who have no drive in life or have no ambition, and it's like, well, why is that? Because you know, and I think it has a lot to do with parenting.
Something to ponder about.
Yes.
It's great talking to you, Sukhi. This project of yours, I see it doing a lot of good for women, and I wish you all the best in that. So, when do you think you're going to become a parent?
I know, it's a question that I think my parents and my
Parents ask
in-laws
all
have
the
been
time.
asking. I think after you've been married for 3 years, it's like, when are you going to start popping
When are you
out these kids? Yeah, both my husband and I think now we're thinking that now is a good time to start trying to have a family. You know, we really wanted to, even though we knew each other before we were married, we really wanted to build that foundation on what our marriage is all about, and to spend that time creating those foundations. And it's funny because we always joke with each other and we say, you know, we're each other's best friend.
Yes.
And honestly, I think you do need to be married to your best friend, because that's how you're going to go through life. And if you have that friendship and that respect, it allows you to, you know, create more love, and then you want to bring new life into this world.
That's right.
But you have to create that foundation first.
Well said, well said. Thank you very much for being our Woman in Focus today.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Sukhi Ghuman has been our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back.